Hello, and welcome to this APR orientation focused on the 2023 Academic Program Review Cohort. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Matthew DeSantis, and I'm the Executive Director for Institutional Effectiveness here at Mason in the Office of Institutional Effectiveness and Planning. The following video is meant to provide a general overview of the academic program review process, as well as to give you insights into how this process has changed over the last few years. For those of you who may have been involved in the process 7 years ago when your department last went through it, there have been some changes, and I want to bring you up to speed on those, make you aware of the resources that are going to be available, provide you a timeline for when certain things need to be accomplished, and just to, again, provide an overview to make sure that you are clear about the APR process. So, as I outlined, the agenda today is to go over the APR process, provide an overview, let you know sort of products that your department will be producing over the next 18 months, as well as the resources that our office and OIEP has available to you, and some of the other resources that are available, not just on our website, but outside of Mason as well. As I mentioned, there have been some changes. I want to bring you up to speed on those recent additions, and then provide you some next steps with regards to what you need to accomplish between now and early spring 2022. There's kind of intermediate steps and more immediate steps that you will need to complete by the end of this fall 2021 semester. Nothing too big, so I don't mean to scare you from the outset, but just wanted to make sure that all of our I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and that we're all starting off on the right foot with the APR process. So to go over an overview, for those of you who may be going through APR for the first time, or just need a refresher from going through it 7 years ago, APR is a comprehensive self-evaluation and self-study that is conducted by departments every 7 years. The purpose of APR is to ensure that the program has evaluated the goals that it has set previously, to determine whether or not it has met those goals, to analyze the trends that have taken place within the department over the last 7 years in terms of enrollment, in terms of faculty, staffing, degrees awarded, post-graduation success of its students, achievement of student learning outcomes, etc. There are several different metrics and data points that are pivotal in developing a comprehensive self-study. And the APR is an opportunity for departments to go through this, for the faculty within those departments to have ownership of this process, and most importantly, for the department to set up a new goal and agenda for the next 7 years, to take all of the data that is at its disposal and look at the trends that are taking place at Mason with its student body, with its faculty, and within higher education at large, and determine what is the best course forward for continued growth and success. Ultimately, APR is about trying to help departments develop a success strategy. That success strategy can be manifested in many different ways. It could be focused on student learning in the classroom. It could be focused on post-graduation success in terms of career placement and career opportunities for its graduates. It could be focused on growing a program or department in terms of developing additional programs to best serve its constituents and to best serve the school, college, and university. It can focus on faculty development, faculty grants, faculty publications, the number of faculty that are needed in the department compared to peer and aspirant institutions. So this is a comprehensive, holistic approach of evaluating a program. Like I said, we go through it every 7 years. Some of you who are in newer programs, this is the first time through. So you're starting with a blank slate, which I think is exciting. Might be a little daunting, but I think overall it's exciting. And then for those of you who have been through this process, where your department has been through this process before, you obviously have the previous self-study that you conducted 7 years ago, where you can go back and as a point of reference, look at what your goals were and start the process of evaluating how you have achieved those goals over time. Now, nearly all departments and programs at the institution do complete APR. However, some programs are provided some exemptions if they have rigorous third-party accreditation standards that they have to go through on a regular basis, in addition to our decennial regional reaccreditation process with SAC-COC. So to provide you a little bit of an overview of the APR process in terms of the calendar and how this will play out over the next year and a half, really, because you're going to be starting this process, obviously, at the tail end of the fall 2021 semester. And this is going to continue until the end of the spring 2023 semester. So this is, like I said, a very comprehensive process. We try to make sure that no step in this process feels too rushed. You have plenty of opportunity for engagement in terms of asking us questions in OIEP, that we can provide you support, that you can balance your work obligations in other areas. And again, making sure that we can provide you plenty of time so you can produce a quality document that is introspective and reflective of what's going on within your program and department. So we start off with the planning stages. And the first thing that you will need to do is determine the APR committee within your department or program. Some of you who are coming from larger departments, it may be helpful to have several people, or one or two people at least, from each of the various programs within your department. For those of you coming from smaller departments or perhaps just a single program, your committee might only be 2 or 3 other people. There's no set size for the committee. Like I said, larger departments, we've seen historically sometimes between 6 and 8 members. Smaller departments, smaller programs, sometimes 2 to 4 members. Just depends on staffing, depends on what everyone's most comfortable with, and making sure that you have sufficient coverage for completing all that is required. Now, once you select that APR committee, and that's something that you'll let us know in OIEP, once you select that committee, so we can make sure that we're always keeping everyone in the loop within your committee. Then it's a process of collecting and analyzing data. Now, that data can come from a number of different sources. It can come from TK20 in terms of looking at assessment data, analyzing that. It can come from our OIEP dashboards and institutional data. I'm going to walk you through that in a little bit, provide you some insights into how we've changed that process a little bit, streamlined it, made it more engaging, I think, interactive, and also a lot more equity-based. So you can get information from there. You can also get a lot of data from your own previous self-studies, analyzing that information, analyzing any departmental reports that you might have had over the years. Maybe our office has done it, perhaps the registrar's office has done it, other offices may have provided you information. But the idea is to collect and aggregate all of this data and take a look at it and kind of understand where you are to determine whether or not there are any gaps in the data that you have. Additionally, our office will also be providing you with survey data. We will be conducting a faculty survey of your department or program, and then we will be assisting you in the administration of an alumni survey. And that is something that you will have control over. That will be conducted in the spring semester, but our office will be providing you assistance throughout that process, providing you the template for that survey, but also providing you some flexibility if you wish to add in custom questions, if you want to make some modifications to the survey to allow you to have that kind of programmatic specific definition there. And then, the kind of last stage of the planning process is developing new goals based upon the evidence that's presented. And this is done commonly through what is referred to as a SWOT analysis, where we look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and trends. And so this is, like I said, a really exciting time to, I think, look at that, because over the last 18 months, because of the pandemic, as much as that has been disrupted, it has also, I think, provided many of us in higher education an opportunity to take a step back and look at things with a new light and to look at what might be possible in the future, to look at how we can best serve our students in the safest manner possible, and to potentially grow our department in new and exciting ways. Then there's the process of writing the self-study. This process might start towards the very tail end of the fall, or the spring 2022 semester, or the fall 2022 semester. But this is when the department or program will begin to write an overview of the unit, provide kind of comprehensive analysis of each degree program, as well as the certificates that are offered. The certificates do not have to have quite as rigorous of a overview as the degree programs. We have several resources I'm going to point to you in a second. Those will provide you guidance with regards to exactly how to approach writing the sections of the unit overview, the degree programs, and the certificates, because each one has different qualifications and different needs. And finally, one of the things that we are doing that is new this time around, we have piloted this process before, but starting with this particular cohort, all programs are going to be completing an external peer review process. Previously, all self-studies were reviewed by an internal team of Mason faculty. However, we have decided that it is best practice, and I think that will provide the best feedback for all of your departments to have a comprehensive external review process in which a team of peer faculty from peer and aspirant institutions will conduct a site visit of your program. You, as the department, will have the ability to select the members of that program and of that review team and invite them, and they will have the opportunity to read your self-study and then come and visit with you on campus or virtually, depending on what is the safest and most pragmatic approach. We've conducted both in the past, so whatever is easiest and best for you is fine, and we are flexible in that regard. But I have a little bit more about that external process, and once that's complete, then we wrap up the APR process with leadership meetings where the departments and deans are able to sit down and look at the report that the review team has produced and discuss the goals of the department, come to an understanding, and develop a memorandum of understanding. And that is something that we in OIEP try to facilitate. So I mentioned some of this already, but just to go into a little bit more detail, in terms of the products of the APR, the first thing is the self-study. This has several different sections to it. There's both the unit level, which is essentially the departmental level, where we're looking at the goals and action plans that are associated with the unit, how it has grown over the last 7 years, what are some of the trends, what's taking place. Then in section 2, you dip down into the degree programs, and you really replicate that process in terms of, again, providing a very comprehensive overview of student achievement, of things like enrollment trends, graduation trends, post-graduation outcomes, developing goals, looking at improvement plans, et cetera. Assessment data would be shared in this section as well. Section 3 is for certificates, if your program or department offers those. If not, that's something you don't have to worry about, obviously. But within the certificate section, there's not nearly as much information to include within that space. And then finally, you have kind of a concluding statement where you provide a little bit of a comprehensive overview of the entire process. Just to give you some due dates right off the top, the draft report of this document is due basically a year from now. So a draft report is due November 1st, 2022. Once the draft report is submitted to me at OIEP, what we will do is I will provide you feedback prior to Thanksgiving. And so that feedback is often, I'm not going to go around and start correcting grammar or checking for those sorts of things. So a lot of times my feedback is much bigger picture and focused on perhaps including additional data or just talking about how you could strengthen different aspects of the self-study. But anyway, like I said, I'll review those reports between November 1st and Thanksgiving. Make sure that you get that feedback back to you right away. And then the final report for the self-study is due shortly after we return from the new year in January 15th, 2023. Okay. Now, when we when you submit the final self-study to our office in OIEP, you will also be submitting it to the external peer review team. It's important that they receive that document early because they will be visiting the campus either virtually or on site in March and April. Therefore, they need to have that review document and that self-study in advance of the meeting, of the site visit, so that they can be properly prepared and prepped for the site visit. And then finally, there's the memorandum of understanding, which is the closure of the APR cycle and goes over any additional actions that may be required, or at least a comprehensive understanding between the college and school and their corresponding department. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the external review process. And this is something that I mentioned earlier that we piloted in previous APR cohorts with a great deal of success. I think the feedback we had from the departments was outstanding. As I mentioned previously, the self-studies were reviewed by an internal team of faculty. And while I think the internal review teams did an outstanding job, ultimately, they often lack disciplinary knowledge and disciplinary specific skills to know what were some of the best practices or trends taking place within the department or program. Obviously, moving to an external process will allow for you to identify and invite 2 to 4 faculty from peer and aspirant institutions to serve on the review team. And here's one of the things I would stress is that these should be programmatic peer and aspirant institutions. Yes, we certainly as an institution, George Mason has institutional peers, and you can find that list on the OIEP website. However, I would tell you not to feel confined to trying to find faculty from that institutional peer and aspirant list. It's much more important that you find peer and aspirant departments and programs, whether they're at schools like Mason or not. Now, obviously, it would be beneficial if they were also Research One institutions, or roughly dealing with some of the same institutional constraints that George Mason is. But it is, I think, I want to provide you the flexibility to feel free to go off of that list at an institutional level and focus on what is your best match programmatically. This is something that the departments are responsible for, so you can identify and then invite those 2 to 4 faculty to serve. The number of faculty that you choose to have on your external review team is up to you. The larger the program, I would say the more likely you would lean to 3 or 4. The smaller the program or department, obviously then perhaps just 2 people would be sufficient. Our office does provide several resources as it relates to the external review process. We have sample and example invitations, as well as team charges that you can send to those individuals that you're identifying to formally invite them to be part of the team, as well as to let them know these are the obligations and the expectations of being a member of the internal review team, or external review team, I should say. And then finally, we also have some examples of site schedules. What will that look like when they have a virtual or on-site visit in terms of who will they need to meet with? Generally speaking, they need to meet with program faculty, students, and the appropriate administrators. There's typically a short debrief with a member from our office and a short meeting with people in the provost office in terms of the provost, Provost Ginsburg, or individuals in undergraduate and graduate education. And finally, the last point here is that honorarium travel costs are the responsibility of the department and school. Honorarium is up to you all at the department or school level. Previously in the pilot studies, departments allocated somewhere between $1,000 or $1,500 for that honorarium. Obviously, they didn't have to worry about travel costs most recently because of COVID. So that is something perhaps to factor into your budget, just looking at that. So aside from those resources regarding the external review process, we also have resources for every other aspect of APR. So we have an APR resource page, which you have gotten the link to in the email that contains this video. You can just go to oiep.gmu.edu and navigate the site to find that APR resource page under institutional effectiveness. But once there, you'll see that there's the APR guide, there's the APR template, which again is attached to the email that I sent you that includes the link to this particular video. The APR report and template do have some specific information regarding department and school versus interdisciplinary programs and how those two different groups should approach writing and developing their self-study. As I also have here, external review documents will be available as I just outlined. Additionally, OIEP has a YouTube channel. We're not influencers yet. We're not necessarily trending, but we're trying. And we have developed a series of videos, not just about APR, but about surveys, about assessment, about peer and aspirant institutions. And that's a great resource. So a lot of our videos are somewhere between 8 and 12 minutes long. So they're not very long. They're quick little modules that you can watch that can just orient you to where certain things are, how to interact with different pieces of software, how to find different pieces of information, how to leverage that information in the APR or annual assessment process. And that's a resource that is going to continually grow over the next year as myself and individuals such as Sheena Surslev and Ashley Archer, who work within our office in institutional effectiveness and planning, continue to add additional modules. We also are very excited to show off our new OIEP dashboards. Now, if you are accessing those dashboards off campus, you will need VPN in order to properly access those. If you're on campus, you can just follow the links that I provided you in the email. And these dashboards will allow for significantly more granular analysis than we had before. This will be able, you'll be able to leverage these dashboards to really dive much deeper into the APR process, do much more in terms of analysis, reflection, as it relates to issues of equity and fairness across both faculty and students. And then if it hasn't been obvious by now, I will be your primary point of contact throughout this process. So if you ever have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Happy to respond to email, happy to set up a meeting with you or members of your department anytime that is convenient to you. So as I mentioned, one of the big changes with the OIEP dashboards is this additional focus on equity. As you go over the APR guide, you'll notice that there are very specific instances in which we want you to address those matters of equity specifically, that we want you to talk about how the department is serving different groups of students, how the department may have a breakdown of different groups of faculty as well. We have dashboards for both of those things. So that is an increased emphasis in this APR cycle. And the OIEP dashboards that I've mentioned look at things like enrollment, degrees awarded, retention, graduation. So it spans really a number of different outcomes. And they're broken down by things like race and ethnicity, gender, Pell status, financial aid status, and first generation status, and others. And again, you can drill down and find this information at the program level, at the degree level, in terms of differentiating between MA, BA, and PhD students, looking within different programs. Obviously, if you start getting down to, for those of you in very small programs, it's possible the N will get rather small, and that can sometimes lead to issues of students being able to be individually identified. But by and large, many of you will be able to drill down as much as you would like in some of this data. Additionally, workshops are going to be made available, particularly in the spring semester, to just help you become more familiar with the dashboards. We're going to have some hands-on workshops with myself, Lisa and Nguyen, who joined the OIEP team recently as well, and who helped develop a lot of these dashboards. So this is something where we're not just going to let you loose or not give you any guidance on this process. We're here to help you through it and help you interpret this data and understand that. And so we'll have those workshops, not just on the dashboards, but also on assessment and goal planning, a SWOT analysis, et cetera. So this is just an example of the dashboards. For those of you who may not have seen it yet, this is all interactive. This is simply a screenshot. But if you look down the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see all of those drop-down filters. And that's where you can really start to drill down to your specific major and degree. You can start to look at things like gender, race, ethnicity, full-time, part-time, state of domicile in terms of in-state, out-of-state, first generation, Pell status, etc., you'll be able to see a pretty significant trend line of enrollment in this particular case, but we have it, as I said, for degrees awarded, for retention, graduation, etc. So this is, like I said, a very dynamic process, very dynamic dashboard. You can export these images directly into your self-study. You can also download them as part of a CSV file, so you can do additional analysis on them. So a lot of flexibility there. So just some additional important notes. I want to emphasize that the purpose of all of this collection and analysis of data is ultimately, as I mentioned at the beginning, to focus on planning and improving equitable success. We want departments to focus on the success of the department as a unit. We also want it to focus on the success of individuals within the department, the faculty, the students, the staff, etc. So it's about equitable success across the institution and across the unit, department, program. Student Learning Outcomes Assessment is available in TK20. Sheena Sursla, who many of you are familiar with, who runs the annual assessment process, has provided workshops on that and will continue to do so. There are modules in the OIEP YouTube channel that are focused on that as well. And then action plans. This is where you want to make sure that you are aligning your future action plans with the unit and program mission and goals. That's something to also potentially reevaluate. Do the mission and goals of the unit or department need to change over the last 7 years to perhaps align with where the school or college is going, or where Mesa as an institution is going? You want to make sure that all of these findings are grounded in the self-study. You also want this to be very forward-thinking. Again, you're looking ahead at 7 years to think about, where do we want your department or program to be 7 years from now? So you need to be aspirational, you need to be forward-thinking, and you need to not just look within your department, your school, or even Mason, but look across higher education in its totality. So as a way of helping you collaborate with each other on these different APR teams within your department and programs, we have developed a Blackboard page. Karen Manley in our office has developed those and has loaded you into your department-specific program Blackboard page. And on that Blackboard page, you will find information from the OIEP website. A lot of the documents I mentioned just a second ago are included in the Blackboard page as well. You also will have APR videos and modules. You'll have space for program-specific information, such as your previous self-study and any other internal documentation that we have about your particular department related to APR. So that's a space where you can collaborate, communicate with each other, upload draft documents, things like that. So that is made available to all of you in this process. And then finally, feel free to contact myself or Karen Manley if you need to add members to this page over time, if your APR committee changes or evolves, if people need to be taken off or on, depending on workload, et cetera. Just feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to do that. So what are some of the next steps? Well, the first step, which you've already completed if you've gotten this far, is watching this video. So you've already gotten through that, which is great. The next step is to select and notify OIEP of the formal APR committee members for your department or program. Please make sure to do that by the end of November so that we can have that information loaded into Blackboard, that we can have that information into our system so that we know who within your department or program is responsible for being on the committee. And that way we can make sure all future communications go out to the entire and appropriate APR committee within your department or program. So make sure that's complete by the end of the month. Additionally, once you have viewed this orientation and others within your department have viewed this, make sure to schedule a department meeting with me by the end of the month if possible, or certainly at the beginning of December is fine. I know that's a busy time of year for everyone. And if it happens to be better after finals or during finals week, that's fine. But I want to make sure that I meet with all of you individually as a department prior to leaving for winter break, okay? And then finally, send us an OIEP a list of department faculty to be surveyed. Our office, again, will be administering a faculty survey of your department. And that faculty survey, in order to ensure anonymity, is of course conducted by us, but you as the department determine who should be surveyed within that population. And what I mean by that is, do you just want to survey full-time faculty? This is really your main choice. Do you want to survey full-time faculty or full-time and contingent or adjunct faculty? Some programs wish to have both. Some just wish to survey full-time faculty. Sometimes it just depends, quite frankly, on the size of the program and the interdisciplinary nature of the program and those sorts of things. But that's certainly a topic that I'm happy to discuss with you individually to determine what's going to be best for your individual departments or programs. But again, letting us know that as soon as possible this semester is very helpful. And then moving forward to spring 2022, what should you be thinking about doing on the horizon? First is identifying and inviting the faculty to serve on the external review team. That's something that should really be sent out in January or February. You don't have to finalize everything, in terms of a travel schedule or anything like that, but the sooner you can invite and come up with that list of faculty to serve, the easier this will be. It's one less logistical challenge to think through. And you certainly don't want to wait until it's too late to have members agree to do this. Additionally, you want to take the first steps of reviewing and analyzing the assessment data in TK20. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about that. And take a first glimpse at the OIEP dashboards and just take a look at where some of the data that's available for your department or program. And then finally, prepare faculty and alumni for surveys. One of the things I'd emphasize, even though our office will be assisting with the administration of the alumni surveys, if you have an alumni Facebook page, or if you have an active social media account for your alumni, letting them know that an alumni survey is coming out is always a really, I think, helpful thing to do. And I would say the same thing's true for faculty. Letting your faculty know ahead of time, giving them advanced warning and advanced notice that there's going to be a survey coming out this spring so that everybody can make sure to complete it on time. We leave the surveys open for about 6 weeks, so there's plenty of time to complete it, but still, I know how surveys can be and they can fall down the bottom of your inbox. So just letting people know how important it is ahead of time always helps increase response rate. Well, that is it for the orientation today, and I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to contact myself. My information is there on the screen in terms of my email address. I'm in Merton Hall on the 3rd floor, so you can always swing by our OIEP offices to come visit if you would like. But I also want to include the contact information there for Karen Manley. And you can also just use the generic oiep@gmu.edu email address. But Karen is a vital partner in this process, and she is someone who helps with so many of the logistics, Blackboard page, and often keeps my head straight with a lot of stuff too. She's somebody who will be involved throughout this process and will be involved in helping set up some of the workshops, et cetera. So feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions. Well, that's it for today. And I just want to say thank you again for watching this orientation video. Best of luck with the self-study. I genuinely look forward to working with each and every one of you in your departments. And most importantly, I look forward to learning more about your departments and how us and OIEP can best serve you so that you ultimately can best serve your students and George Mason. Have a wonderful day.